yeah, I think we'll have some very interesting conversation about that, Noemie.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it, and I'm hoping we'll have some good technical questions for you as well. And Noemie over there in London, our cheese expert from L'école du Fromage, our gorgeous girl who just keeps giving with us cheese love. And this amazing platter tonight. We've just been saying there is just absolutely every kind of cheese on there, so it's good to go. Anyway, over to you, Noemie. I'm going to disappear now. And,
thank you, Tracy. Okay. I generally define myself as just a cheese education manager, but I think I will now change my title to cheese love giver.
Yeah, cheese love giver is great.
So yeah, very welcome everyone. We are here for a very classic, in a way, cheese pairing, the cheese and the wine, the perfect wedding. But I think it's always good to review the classics, and ahead of Christmas, it's a very good idea, I think, to go through some of our recommendations. As Tracy mentioned, my role is cheese education and product developer of Savencia UK. And so Savencia is a continental cheese expert company, and I'm very lucky to work in that company. And one of the main treasure is actually what made my life very easy to prepare tonight's pairing, this cheese bowl selection. So I didn't even have to prepare cheese to display it, because I just have the very easy task to unwrap, just unseal this label, and there you go. And I think you have the same cheese as me, Ophelie.
I do. I put them on a plate already, but yeah, I have all of them. Well, I lost you.
Throughout.
Okay, great.
I
thought I lost you.
Okay. So this will allow us to go traveling throughout France, because we have a nice French cheese selection. As you will see, we have plenty of region that we will go through, and obviously we also have nice wine, French wine region. And as we know, what goes to grow together goes together. So that's quite applicable for tonight. Obviously, we couldn't find, I think, better partners than Baron Philippe de Rothschild when it's down to French wine. I think, Ophelie, if you want to say a few words about Baron Philippe and the story of the company, and then
yeah, of course,
with the parents.
Great. So about the Baron Philippe de Rothschild company, it's a company that has been created in 1933 after the creation of our most famous Mouton Cadet red. So this wine is 90 years old this year, because it's been created first in 1930 by the Baron Philippe de Rothschild, who gave his name to our company. So we're still a family company. So now we have the third Rothschild generation at the head of our company. And we've been producing wines so for 90 years, branded wines. We work with 250 vine growers partners in the Bordeaux region. So we produce Bordeaux wines. So the wines you will taste from Bordeaux are Mouton Cadet Red and Mouton Cadet Rosé. And we also produce a range of wines from the Pays d'Oc region in the south of France, monovarietal wines. And so here you're going to taste our Viognier, which is really unique. So I will be really happy to guide you through this tasting and the pairing with the cheese, which just works really well.
Okay, cool. So I think we will start with a good idea for the Viognier. You'll confirm it later on. So to start, we're going to go to the West Country of France, so around the Loire Valley area, where we find this Crottin de chèvre or Crottin goat cheese. And really the Loire Valley is the area, the cradle of this type of chalky and froggy rind, as we will see for the Crottin. So this area is actually very popular for wine, very renowned for its Sancerre, for its Pouilly Fumé in this area. But at the end of the 19th century, the Philoxera Crisis was a great disease that destroyed the vineyards, and the winemaker had to clean the lands. And for that, they brought goats. They actually brought goats to remove all the grapes in the land and to make it completely clean. And this is where they reconverted the region, and they reconverted themselves in cheesemakers, making cheese with obviously goat milk. And the goat milk is actually rich in minerals, in calcium, but it also has the property of losing calcium very quickly during the cheese process, which we call the demineralization. And this work will give this specific chalky curve that we have in the Crottin cheese type. So the cheese is characterized by a very, what we call froggy or rippled rind, which is made from the yeast development all over the rind during 10 days of maturation. And we will see in terms of flavor, it's got subtle, creamy, lactic, and goaty flavor. And on the palate, it's got this nice balance and mix between sweetness and acidity. When we discover the aftertaste, we also can find some hazelnuts, very soft and subtle aroma. And again, we have a chalky flavor, a chalky texture that makes the cheese quite firm on the palate, but also melting as we have it on the tongue. And obviously, this cheese with the time will evolve. We start with a chalky texture, and as we go, the texture is getting more and more melting. And yeah, that's where we want to find a specific pairing balance with something that's as subtle as this type of Crottin cheese. And I think the Viognier would be this subtle balance.
Yeah, the Viognier just pairs really well because it's so I don't know if you're familiar with this grape variety, which comes from the southern east part of France, and we also have it in the Pays d'Oc region. It's a really aromatic grape variety that gives lots of pear, also apricot aromas. It's really aromatic, so it gives like the impression that the wine is kind of sweet because it's really aromatic and really expressive, but the wine is dry. And I think what matches really well with this this goat cheese is the fact that the kind of sweetness given by the aromas compensates in a way the salinity of the cheese and the melty texture as well. So it's really nice because when you were talking about the minerality, Noemie, here I think we have something really interesting because the minerality of the cheese is going to be balanced by also the minerality of the wine, but also the fruit and the roundness you also have in the mid palate. So even if it's a dry wine, and I think people wouldn't try a white wine with a goat cheese because they would think that maybe the goat would be too powerful in the taste to match these dry whites. This is a grape variety which is really aromatic and really expressive, so it matches really well with this cheese, which, yeah, for sure it has an intense taste, but the intense taste of the wine balances the taste of the cheese as well.
Yeah, I just have one problem with this pairing, is that I can't stop.
That's a good problem.
Good for him to have, okay.
I have
If an enologist tell me it's a good problem, then
it's good to have those good problems.
yes. Okay, wow, yeah, really, really nice, really, really nice. I was gonna say, because we talk about sweetness, we talk about lactic flavor. Again, in pairing, I always say, like, the first rule is that there is no rule, because we all have individual way to approach taste and flavors. But one recommendation is to try and match as much characteristic as possible. So always be guided by texture, flavor, what we call the simple flavors, which we recognize on the tongue, and as much texture, simple flavor, and aroma we can pair in both products, the best will be the pairing. The whole point is to not lose any of the two elements of the pairing. So I think it's always good to have some pairing basics, and that's going to be helpful as well to guide us on the next one. So I am now taking you to the Pyrénées, Basque Country area, which is also a region very known for its wine. And Ophelie knows something of it. Actually, not so far right now from the Pyrénées. It's a very traditional region for mountain cheese with the chevre tradition. And it's actually in the mountain that hard cheese recipe has been created. What means hard cheese recipe? It means cooking the curd, it means pressing the cheese, and these techniques are the techniques that allow to for the cheese to last longer by having less moisture and more concentration. So we also know that in the mountains we have fresh grass available only during the few months of the summer, and we want the cheese to last all over the year and to reflect these nice flavors of the grass, of the summer grass. So that's also one of the reasons where we need to apply some preservation concepts, such as the hard cook style. And also, the Pyrenees is also a region of sheep, and the sheep have been adapted for many years in this area, which is quite rustic area, being able to graze in the mountains in the summer and having quite rough, tough winter. And sheep are, we have 3 breeds developing in this area, and we know that sheep milk is also quite rare. A sheep will produce milk during half a year, comparing to a cow that produces almost all year round milk. Another point is when a cow can produce from 10 to sometimes 50 liters a day, a sheep can only produce 1 to 2 liters. So all these reasons will add to the fact that we need to cook the curd, we need to make the cheese last, and we want as well to develop and work a maturation process so we can enhance the flavor and the quality of the milk. So this is why we have this kind of technology, and one of the classic Pyrenean cheese is the Tomme. Tomme refers to hard cheese, and Tomme des Pyrénées is the cheese that we have with us tonight. So in terms of flavor, it's a cheese which is really nutty. It's a hard cheese, but it doesn't have too strong flavors, like too farmyard flavor. It's much more into the nuts, slightly grassy, slightly gardeny, flowery. Yeah, I'm seeing Tomme de Brebis. Yeah, Tomme de Brebis is the other name for Tomme des Pyrénées. We can either refer to the region or to the type of cheese. And yes, we are into this aroma profile. And in terms of texture, the savoir-faire of this technology leads to a firm texture, but very creamy. It's almost disappear as soon as we eat it. As soon as we put it on the tongue, it almost disappears in the palate. And the aftertaste of flowery notes, of grass, fresh grass notes, is even stronger once we've tasted the cheese.
You're totally right, Noemie, when you're talking about the structure of the cheese, which is melting in the mouth. It's impressive, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. So yeah, maybe some people will think because we have hard cheese, we want to go for a tannin wine, but it's actually a tricky hard cheese because it's creamy, it's subtle. We're not into very strong aroma. The body is melting. So I think this is why, Ophelie, you were recommending kind of intermediary texture wine of it.
Yeah, totally, because I think what's interesting here is, as you said, we have this kind of melty texture in the cheese, which is really interesting, but which makes it hard to pair with a red wine. Or you could pair it with a very light structured red white, like a Pinot Noir, for example. But if you're going to a structured wine, like a wine from the Bordeaux region, for example, it would be too tannic. And I think the tannins of the wine wouldn't match really well with the melty texture of the cheese. So I think what's interesting with this pairing here is that you have the advantages with a rosé wine to have a very soft tannic structure, which is enough for the texture of the cheese. And then you also have this very fresh, interesting red fruit, which also matches really well with the taste of this cheese, which is quite soft in a way. So a rosé wine is just perfect for this kind of pairing, because you have a good balance in the taste, also in the structure, both of the wine and the cheese. Also to explain to you how our rosé is produced. So it comes 100% from the Bordeaux region. Here we work on a style of rosé which is very fruity and very fresh and not too tannic, because you can also find lots of different rosé wines. So here the goal is really to play on the freshness and the roundness of the wine. So we have here 3 grape varieties. The Merlot grape variety will be the predominant one, and it's really perfect to work with this grape because it's going to give roundness and very interesting fresh fruit to our wine. Then we also have Cabernet Sauvignon, which gives this very soft tannic structure that you will feel in the wine. And to finish, Cabernet Franc, which is a cousin of Cabernet Sauvignon, which gives a very soft structure, but it's a very elegant grape variety, which displays lots of very interesting, fresh, spicy aromas. So the freshness of this wine that we produce to be really fresh and expressive, because you have different ways to produce rosé wines. But here what we do is that we harvest our grapes and we directly press the grapes to get this juice that then is going to be fermented to get a wine from the grape juice. But the goal is really to press the grapes really gently, not to have too much structure or too much intensity in the wine. Really focus on the fruity, warm texture of the wine. And when you were talking about the very soft herbal taste of the cheese, I think it also matches really well with the wine, because you have this very soft freshness and very fresh spicy aromas, which match really well with those herbal notes you can find in the cheese.
It does. It does. Another difficult pairing to leave.
Yeah, indeed.
And I can see other people have this problem in the chat, so it's good.
Good problems tonight.
Yes. Okay. So again, the idea is go increasing in intensity. So and that's the whole idea of pairing as well. We want to go kind of enjoying as we go on the tasting. So that's why what's next is going to be slightly more intense, and it's going to lead us to another region, very iconic region for France for cheese. It's actually the first PDO region in terms of number of PDO production of cheese. It's the Auvergne. So Auvergne is the very center of France. It's big valleys surrounded by volcanoes, and the volcanoes will really have an impact on the soil and on the grass quality that is grazed by the cow in the meadows. Actually, in this region, the main cow breed is the Montbéliard, which is one of the best protein variety producer. So when we talk about the cheese quality, we look quite a lot at the protein, and we look at different molecular aspects of the protein. And the Montbéliard cow is a very good one for good quality protein. And this is actually what is going to be used as the milk to produce the next cheese, which is the Saint-Nectaire. So Saint-Nectaire is the PDO. It's generally remembered as one of the favorite cheese of Louis XVI, for the little anecdote. So it also talk about the long existence of this cheese and the long tradition of making this cheese. Today, it's more than 13,000 tons produced in the Auvergne area of Saint-Nectaire. And this cheese is, so it's longer maturation. It's got 28 days as a minimum. And during the maturation, the rind is washed, but it's just a dry washing where the affineur will just look at swiping the mold, which is this browny brown mold that you can observe on the rind. And we just swipe it so that it develops the aroma on the rind. And we definitely on the rind can find, after the months of maturation and the washing, dry wash process, we can find this very cavey character, strong cavey character, bit earthy as well. And we have a contrast in this cheese because the rind will be very cavey, but the paste is much more onto more cowshed, more animal character. We can much more feel that we're traveling in the fields with the cow that are grazing. It's really this nice balance between and differences between the rind and the paste. And obviously, again, we are in a hard cheese making technology, so we have firm texture, and we also find some black fruit or forest fruit aroma on the aftertaste. So that makes it a quite complex cheese. This is, I think, where we need a step more in terms of wine intensity to find the right pairing. It's not that easy to find Sanikta in the UK, so I'm really enjoying it.
because we eat all of it. Because it's too good to leave France. So Noemie, just a question, because I do eat cheese for a long time because I'm French, typically French. But lots of people ask me when I travel abroad if you can eat the rind, if you should avoid it, and I do eat it, but yeah, could you enlighten me on that point?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. My answer is yes and no. French paradox answer. No, so basically it depends whether the rind is natural or artificial. Okay. When we talk about mold rind, so like the rind of the Nectaire, where we just have developed by washing it the mold, which is, by the way, called the mucor on this cheese, we can perfectly eat it because molds are microorganisms. They are perfectly edible, and they bring added value to the character of the cheese. So you have no safety problem to eat it, and it's also good to do it because you can enjoy more of the character. Also, it's important to mention that when we have cheese with maturation, we generally find the strongest intensity just close to the rind. So if I remove the rind, I will kind of lose this intensity as well. However, you also find, I don't have here any with artificial rind, but I can give some example. The rind of the Manchego, for example, it's a painting that protects the cheese during its maturation, but it's just there to protect the cheese and to help consumers to identify the cheese. So in that case, we will not eat this rind. It's not even a recommendation. It's not edible, not good for your health. So we discard the rind. Other example is the edam. We have waxing around the rind, and this is obviously not edible at all. So try to guide you and check if the rind is natural or artificial, and generally you'll see if it's a painting, you can see that, you can just realize that it's not natural. But for the cheese we've went through so far, we've got very natural rinds and really interesting for the cheese flavor. So that's my answer.
Thank you, Noemie. You helped me on that point. I will educate and give love and cheese to other people as well.
Yes, please.
So yeah, I think I really I'm really following you on that point, because the cheese, the Sanikta, is quite a bit earthy and quite cavey. So that's why also it matches perfectly well with a red wine. You could also, if you're not so much into red wines, you could also pair it with the rosé if you like, because the structure of the Tomme and the Sanikta would feel similar, but the rosé is more melty. So I think here, as the wine, as the cheese is more intense in the taste and also quite firmer, you could have it with the rosé, but you should prefer having it with a red wine, because also the structure of the red wine is more intense, so it will match with the taste of the cheese really well. And also in terms of structure, the structure of the cheese is quite firm, And so the tastes of red wines are also quite, the sensations are quite firm as well, because you have the tannins giving structure to the wine and some intensity as well. So about this wine, the Mouton Cadet Red, so we work with the same grape variety as the ones we work with for Mouton Cadet Rosé. So that would feel like a paradox, because people could wonder how we produce two very different wines with the same grape varieties. In fact, the process are different to produce rosé wines and red wines. When I told you for rosé wines that we harvested the grapes and then we crushed them to extract the juice from it, here for red wines, we're going to harvest the grapes and then put the berries of the grapes inside the vat when we're going to have the fermentation happening. And then it's the juice coming out from the berries naturally with the contact of the skins for a long time, because a fermentation transforming grape juice into wine lasts approximately 7 to 10 days. And then we do a maceration of the young wine and the skins of the berries for 3 weeks in hot conditions, warm temperatures around 30 Celsius degrees. So this contact between the juice and the skins, which contain all the structure of the future wine, but also the color of it, because the pulp is completely translucent from the beginning. So it's really the contact between the juice and the skins, which is going to give this intense color and the structure of the wine as well. So the process are totally different between rosé and red, but then the grape varieties are going to bring kind of the same typicity to the wine in the end. So Merlot really gives the fruit and the very good volume in the mouth. So usually here for the red wine, we'll have more of the intense red and black fruit aromas. For the rosé, it will be more fresh red fruits. And then Cabernet Sauvignon gives the structure to the wine, and Cabernet Franc gives a good balance between the structure of the Cabernet Sauvignon and the roundness of the Merlot, because if you just blend Merlot and Cabernet Sauvignon, quite often it doesn't match so well, and you need a third ingredient to balance those two first grape varieties. So in the end, here we focus really on the fruitiness. That's why we have a lot of Merlot in our blend. So it's a wine which is really fruity, and I think that's why you have this very nice pairing between Mouton Cadet Red and the Sanikta, because the fruit of Mouton Cadet Red is going to be balanced by the firmness of the Sanikta, and also the very soft fruit that you also find in the Sanikta. And then the structure that you have on the finish of the palate balances really well with the rind and this cavey aroma you were mentioning.
Mm-hmm. Does this one have some oaks, or has it not got maturation?
Not that one. So it's aged in stainless steel vats, so that we have only fruit expressing. So the goal is really to have lots of fruit, red and black fruits, and then the maceration in the vat between the skins and the juice is going to get the fruit intense, and then the structure of the wine appear. And usually it's during this maceration that the tannins, the color, and the fruits are going to combine and to find their balance. So maceration is really a key point in the winemaking.
Okay. And you were mentioning that the Merlot grape variety is the most important one to really make the fruit development
come out. Yeah, totally. The Merlot grape variety is really, so it's really interesting, because it's like in the cheese area, the different races and then the species of cows or goats or anything, and then also the terroir, because the grass really gives a specific taste to every cheese. In the end, it works really the same way with wine. So depending on the area where you're going to plant your vines, and also the different grape varieties, that you have, you will find different typicities. So Merlot is really focused on fruitiness, and I would say that's it, but it gives volume and fruit. And so that's totally its role in the wine. And then that's why in Bordeaux, we work with different grape varieties and we do blends. It's to combine the different typicities of each grape variety. So you still have a structure in the wine, but that's given by the Cabernet Sauvignon, which is produces fruit, but not so much. It would be more spicy aromas and also black fruits. And then it's the tannins that the Cabernet Sauvignon produces and expresses that is also going to bring the fruit given by the Merlot to the finish of the palate. So yeah, the thing is you really have to find the balance between the grape varieties. So that's not something you do with cheese, obviously, but you do it with wine, and you have to find the perfect balance between them.
Well, that's interesting because yes, in cheese we do have the selection of the milk, obviously depending on the region, on the breed, on the season of the year, we have an impact on the milk quality, and it's actually in a way the cheese flavor development and the technique have been kind of adapting to the milk properties available. And if we went through developing and creating the Sanikta in the Auvergne area, it's because in this region, the milk has certain properties that will allow to make firmer style of cheese. And we also will, by washing the rind, by developing the maturation, enhance the flavor present in the milk. But we won't play around that with that many different varieties as you guys do in the wine world. The Spanish do make a lot of three milks cheese, like the Iberico, for example, where they kind of mixed. But yeah, generally in the cheese, you will try to reflect the quality of the terroir coming from one type of milk, coming from one region. Yeah. Which
makes things really tricky sometimes, I think, because you really have to find the perfect quality from the perfect milk, and you don't have any other options in the end.
Yeah, exactly. But in some cheese production, for example, the Chaours, which is a triple cream, there's a specific selection of the cream, of the fat matter coming from the milk. And we compare sometimes this job to the enologist job, because they will really, the cheesemaker will get the cream and select the best cream qualities to do the mix with the milk before transforming the triple cream cheese. So we find some of this, in some types of cheese.
Nice. I learned lots of things today. Great.
Me too. And I got a lot of good ideas for Christmas. So yeah, another one. We won't go through all the cheese of my board because it's quite a big selection. But as we are in Auvergne, I think it's good to go for one of the most iconic Auvergnat cheese, which is the Bleu d'Auvergne, the blue from Auvergne, and it's one of the oldest cheese produced in the world. Actually, we think the first blue cheese from this region was made more than 2,000 years ago. So it's really emblematic. It was actually became a PDO in 72. So this is where the Auvergnat cheesemaker decided to protect the name, the Bleu d'Auvergne name. And in terms of technique of production, it's classic French blue style. where we have a slow, so when we have the curd grain, we will have a slow steering of it, so we can make firm grains, but still with a lot of moisture. And when we do blue cheese style, we want as much moisture as possible, so the blue mold can develop. The blue mold will need three main elements. It will need moisture, it will need nutrients, so we have the proteins, we have the fat matter of the cheese, and we also need oxygen. And that's actually why we find one of the main process of this type of cheese, which is the needling. The fact that we will perforate the mold when it's the cheese when it's molded, and we perforate it so that the oxygen can literally go through the cheese and allow the mold to develop. And that's why, if we look at the Bleu d'Auvergne, we can see almost some rest of the stains of the needles. And this is, and we can also see in the rind actually some holes, which are the holes left by the needles that perforated the cheese. And that's again something really important to allow the development of the mold. And obviously the mold will generate a strong aroma development, strong character. Again, the mold will develop these cavey flavors, this time inside the paste. And we have this kind of balance between a creamy paste, because the mold, what he will do will be to transform the fat matter and transform the texture in making it more and more creamy as we go during the maturation. And we have this creaminess that also leaves some sweet notes, balanced by the earthy character of the mold aroma. That's obviously, as I said, another emblematic cheese of the Auvergne region. And I think in a pairing session and trial, it's better to have it at the end. And it's always a tricky one, because it's very intense, and it always risks to kind of be overwhelming any pairing you have with. And that's why I think, Ophelie, we said that for that one, we want to go back to something with more sweetness, and we want to play more the contrast rather than try to find the same intensity in a wine. We want to contrast with kind of different wine profile, and balance with something.
Totally. I just to be curious, because I to be honest, I knew it wouldn't match so well, but I tasted it. I tried to have the Bleu d'Auvergne with Mouton Cadet red, and it didn't match so well, because the cheese is really melty. So first you have you lack balance between the structure of the wine and the cheese, because it's really melty, and the wine is structured and firm in the structure. So first, those 2 points don't match. And also the aromas of the wine with the red and black fruits don't match neither with the taste of the blue cheese, which is really cavey and quite intense and really strong. And someone told me once that it would be really interesting, and a lot of people do it, and I never tried it before this person told me about it, to try Bleu d'Auvergne or blue cheese with sweet wines. And in the Bordeaux region, it would be a Sauterne wine, because the Sauterne wine is produced in a very typical way, and in fact it's a typical like a fungus which develops around the berries of the white grapes, which are going to make it lose its water and concentrate in aromas and also sugar. And the sweetness and the kind of like very soft and really intense taste of the fungus developing matches really well with the blue cheese. And I think comparing to the wines we have here, the most interesting wine to have it with the Bleu de Vin would be the Viognier we had at first. Because Viognier, as I said earlier, is really fruity and this intense fruit and expressive fruit makes it kind of sweet in a way in the palate. And so it matches really well with the Bleu de Vin because it totally balances the intense taste, but also the structure of the cheese, which is really melty. So I would definitely go for that.
Yes, and I have another one that's ready in the board is the Queen Space. Also a good pairing, not alcohol pairing, but still a nice pairing with Bleu de Vin, which reflect that contrast between sweet and salty that you were referring to. So I think the Bleu de Vin is the right one to use the Queen Space with. And interesting because in terms of pairing that won't really work, I also tried the red Mouton Cadet with the Crottin. And we generally say that when you try to pair acidity with tannin, it will create in your mouth some kind of metallic or bitter taste. And this is a good example of case where it happens and of pairing that don't match, at least for me. So yes, always good exercise to do. Yeah, I think it was a great trip. I really enjoyed it. I think it was a very good idea from the Academy of Cheese to create this event. Yeah, I hope you all had some ideas for Christmas pairings or any cheese and wine gathering. Yeah, I don't know if we have a few minutes for any questions.
We do. We have a couple of questions
Okay.
for you. I think they're mostly cheese questions. So Stephanie was asking, is Tomme cheeses, are they exclusive to the Savoy region? Does the Savoy region also do a Tomme de Brebis? So I think Tomme is a name for a cheese that's in France that's made on the farm from the milk from the farm, isn't it?
Yes, Tomme refers more to the texture of the cheese generally. A Tomme refers to a cheese that has, for me, the main description of a Tomme is a cheese that's hard but not cooked. So we have, and we find some Tomme in Savoie. Yes, we have the classic Tomme de Savoie. Tomme is not a denomination of origin. It's just refer to, generally we have 20 centimeter diameter for this type of cheese, and they have this elastic texture which has certain firmness, but it's not a hard cheese. This is what the definition of Tomme really is. But yeah, we can find Tomme of different style in different region. However, the Tomme de Brebis is really classic from the southwest of France.
Okay, so it's not restricted to one region, it can be from lots of different.
Exactly.
Okay, and then the other question is from Melanie, when choosing goat's cheese, is there a way to know if one has more of a goaty taste if you haven't tried it before? Well, we would always say ask the monger, ask the
Yes, ask the cheese, the cheese love giver.
Yeah.
I don't know if the question is because you want to avoid it or not, but for me, goat flavor are generally more subtle when the cheese is ripened. And we mentioned in the Crottin, we have this yeast development on the rind, and the yeast will have will work on the flavor development and generally create some sweetness that will balance the intensity of the goat flavor. So generally cheese that have some sign of maturation in the goat milk style of cheese will have more balance of this strong caprine aroma. If you have very fresh goat cheese, very lactic but very fresh, generally it's where the goat aroma will be the strongest and the more intense.
Okay, I think we have a couple of there's the Rosary goat's cheese made in the UK, and that's very mild. I think it's different, like again, personal taste buds and personal preferences.
Yeah, also as well.
But we would always say, ask if you can bear to, if it's something that you don't want to have in the flavour, but always ask for a little taster beforehand in the delicatessen or the farm shop or the cheesemonger.
Definitely.
Those were absolutely delicious cheeses, though. The Tomme de Brevis was like you said, it's melt in the mouth, isn't it? Completely.
It is.
Unfortunately, I didn't have the wine. I just had some Earl Grey tea.
Oh, too bad.
There's someone you can talk to.
But thank you, ladies. That's all the questions. Thank you so much for joining us from London and from Bordeaux. It was really interesting to hear about the different styles of wines and the rosé as well. There was a few people saying how amazing the rosé is.
Thank you.
I need to grab myself a bottle of that. Where would you buy it in the UK? Generally, is it stocked at the supermarkets, the rosé?
That's a great question. I don't have the answer to, but I can totally get you that information and say it to you.
I think maybe Sainsbury's or Waitrose.
I'm not sure about it. Well, I'm just basically part of the technical team. So all the commercial points, I don't have them, but I would be happy to give you them.
You're the vine and the wine expert.
Wine love giver as well.
Yeah. My two wine love giver and cheese love giver. But thank you, everybody. Thank you to everybody for joining. I hope you've enjoyed and, like you say, got some ideas for some pairings. And we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.
Sorry, just because I'm watching in the chat, and certain Nicolas is at online.
Okay, so online shopping. All the way at the moment, isn't it?
It is.
Perfect.
Get out and meet each other someday soon. Okay, we'll close up there. Thank you so much, ladies, and bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Santé.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.